What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So for today's daily episode, as you can see, we have an update on the Dexter Trinity Killer offshoot, prequel, sequel, spin-off, whatever you want to call it. We have an update from it. John Lithgow comes out and provides not an update necessarily on the series, but some advice, as you can see from the headline, on for who's ever going to play the younger version of his character. Now, we currently have, as you know, Dexter Original Sin in flight. It's going to be coming to an end here in the next 3 weeks, with episode 8 dropping tomorrow, and then we only have 2 more weeks before that comes to a conclusion. Then we have Dexter Resurrection coming in June of this year. And we know, as far as this prequel series for Trinity Killer, that my understanding was, and at least the last report we saw, was that the shows, the scripts, everything's been written. They just haven't shot anything yet because they've been working on shooting Dexter Resurrection while Dexter Original Sin is airing. So that way, that one should be ready to go come June 2025. And then potentially during the airing of that show, they may decide to then go start filming Trinity Killer, this prequel series. As you've heard me say, and we do a weekly breakdown, a weekly summary of each episode of Dexter Original Sin, and thus far, it just, for me, it hasn't been a series that I feel is necessary. I'm not rating it all that high. I am a fan of Dexter, the original series that came out. But like many of you, I was not a fan of the final season. I wasn't a fan of how they ended it. New Blood, Dexter New Blood was okay. It was a one and done season, and we know the reason why they did that. The underlying reason was the fans did not like how they ended Dexter's story and how they ended the original series. So they came back, did a one and done with New Blood, and even with the ending of that, with Harrison supposedly killing Dexter, fans still didn't like that. So now here we are. Somehow, some way, the executives said we want more Dexter, so we ended up with Original Sin. We're ending up with Resurrection, and now we're going to get a Trinity Killer prequel series, which is interesting because of all the the killers that Dexter has come across in the original series. Trinity Killer was an interesting one to pick. I would have liked to have maybe seen his brother Brian. The ice truck killer. I would have liked to have seen maybe a series on him as he was committing the murders that was maybe feeding into the season 1 of Dexter, but that's just me. So let's take a look at the details for this here. We have John Lithgow shares his advice for the actor who will play the young Trinity Killer in prequel series, and the subheadline here is John Lithgow will be providing the narration for Trinity Killer prequel series, but another actor will be playing the character. Well, that's pretty obvious. It wouldn't make sense if this was a prequel series and John Lithgow is playing the character, right? So let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so here, the 4th season of the Showtime series Dexter saw the title character, a serial killer who targets other killers, going up against a homicidal creep called the Trinity Killer, played by John Lithgow. A family man with a wife and 2 kids. Their home life isn't as happy as it appears, so we know he was an abusive father and an abusive husband. So that's what they're referring to if you haven't seen the 4th season of Dexter. The Trinity Killer, aka Arthur Mitchell, would regularly commit cycles of murders that saw him slit a woman's wrist in her bathtub, make another woman jump to her death, and bludgeon a man. At first, it was believed that he would kill 3 people each cycle, thus his nickname, but it was later revealed that there was a 4th kill to each cycle, the burial of a young boy. Lithgow did such a great job playing the despicable character, he won an Emmy for it, and we haven't seen the last of Arthur Mitchell. It was recently confirmed that a Trinity Killer prequel series is in the works at Paramount Plus. We know all this information, so let's get down to the quote here. Lithgow said he would tell the actor, just be on his side. Not an easy thing to do with the Trinity Killer, but be on his side. I'm not really too sure what that means. Of course, he would be on his side, unless he's talking about, how can we be rooting for a serial killer? But wasn't that the whole premise of the original series Dexter? You were kind of rooting for him not to get caught while he was killing other criminals, and maybe the difference here is the fact that the Trinity Killer is killing innocent people. so maybe you don't necessarily want to root for him. I don't really understand why Paramount Plus wants a Trinity Killer series, especially since Lithgow won't be in the lead. Unlike Dexter, Arthur Mitchell isn't someone you can really side with or root for, so there you go. If you're not the actor playing him, he's just pure scumbag, but we all see how it goes. And I don't know, I depending upon how you write the story, I mean, we've seen some TV series, we've seen some movies where you are rooting for the villain, you're rooting for the person who's causing the chaos. If I think of a movie that of recent years, at least within the past few years, that was very popular. I mean, you think about when Joker came out. Was it 2019 when Joker came out, the first film? Everyone was rooting for Arthur in that film. You were rooting for him to push against the system, push against the people that were, putting the boot on his neck, so to speak, right? So I think depending upon how you write the story and the character development, you could easily be rooting for the villain. Again, that's what we were doing with Dexter in many ways. I mean, he's a serial killer that we're rooting for to not get caught and to somehow get out of all the predicaments he ends up finding himself in. I don't see this being any different. I see this potentially being where you're either you might be rooting for Arthur, again, not to get caught. And we know he's not going to get caught in this prequel series, because then we wouldn't have seen him as an older version that John Lithgow plays in Dexter season 4. So that right there tells us that this prequel series isn't going to, I'm not saying it's not going to amount to anything, but depending upon where in Arthur's life it starts, either is this at the beginning when his sister died and that's what pushed him to become a serial killer, or is this going to be somewhere where, hey, he's been a serial killer for 3 or 4 years and now we're just following him for 8 to 10 episodes? If that's the case, like Dexter Original Sin, in my opinion, we don't need this. No, I don't know why we're getting this. Again, unless they're just trying to, no pun intended, like bleed the Dexter franchise just to garner, more people to the Paramount Plus streaming platform, or, for views or whatever the case may be. I just don't see why this is necessary. So while we wait to see how the Trinity Killer show is going to turn out, Clyde Phillips, who served as the showrunner on the first 4 of Dexter's 8 seasons, then revived the series with Dexter New Blood, is continuing the franchise with the prequel series Dexter Original Sin, which is on Paramount Plus with Showtime, and the sequel series Dexter Resurrection, which is expected to premiere on Showtime in June. Phillips is also behind the Trinity Killer series, and in fact, he recently said that the scripts are already written. So yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. So I wasn't for sure if that had changed, or maybe if I had, maybe read something incorrectly, but right there, all the scripts are ready to go. It's just a matter, and I would imagine they have an idea for casting, because you wouldn't want to get this far and not have any casting ideas of who you want to come in and play these parts. So let's just finish off this topic with this final quote here. We wrote the entire Trinity Killer series. At the moment, it is on the back burner. John Lithgow has agreed to be the voice of his younger self, the way Michael Hall is doing for Original Sin. There's that, and we're doing another show with Michael C. Hall, Resurrection. We were writing that while shooting Original Sin, so that's fairly busy. We begin shooting Resurrection in January, and it will air in June 2025. So this is an old quote. I mean, January is almost over, so obviously they're shooting Resurrection probably as we speak. They could be coming to a close here in a couple months if they're going to meet that June 2025 date. And that's where we end this. Again, I don't think this is necessarily needed. I mean, it's a nice update. It's nice to know that, if they're going to do it, that John Lithgow is involved in some way, shape, or form. But again, we'll check it out. We'll watch it. I'll give it a chance. Like I've always said, I'll give any movie or TV series an opportunity to win me over. But going into this, I just don't think we need it. And I'm 7 episodes in on Dexter Original Sin, with episode 8 dropping tonight at midnight. Thus far, of the 7 episodes, I've only liked episode 7. And that was just because we got that great spin. I'm not going to spoil it, but we have already done our summary of episode 7. We did it last week, so if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. It is spoilers, so again, if you haven't seen it, just be aware of that. But for this one, I just don't really see this has less of a purpose to me than Original Sin does. Let's just put it that way. All right, so going into our last topic for today's daily episode, Insidious 6 receives disappointing release update. So if you didn't know, or if you didn't hear already, Insidious 6 has been delayed. So if you haven't been keeping up with this franchise has been going now for roughly 14 years, give or take. The first film came out in April 2011, and then it was almost like an every 2-year cycle for a while. We got Chapter 2 in 2013, Chapter 3 in 2015. Then we had a bit of a longer break. We had Insidious: The Last Key in 2018. And again, a little bit of a longer break again. Then we got Red Door in 2023. So those were the 5 films we've gotten thus far, with Insidious 6 being the final film in this franchise. But again, it has been pushed out. Now, this doesn't take into account the spin-off film Thread that's supposed to be still happening. No new information I've seen on that as of yet. And I don't think, to my knowledge, we're ever going to get the crossover that was talked about in 2018 between the Insidious and Sinister franchises. I just don't think that's ever going to happen, especially one with this being the final film in the overarching franchise, and the fact that it's now getting pushed out, which concerns me a little bit, that they might not have enough faith in it for this year, which is why they're pushing it out. So it says here the 5th movie in Insidious franchise, Insidious: The Red Door, was intended to end the story. A 6th movie was later greenlit by Sony Pictures and scheduled for 2025 after Red Door's box office success. So let's take a pause there. Even though these films have not gotten great reviews outside the first one, when I say great reviews, Insidious had, again, we use Rotten Tomatoes because it's just one of those few websites that gathers this information. Although I don't hold too much weight into Rotten Tomatoes, it got a 66% off of like 170 some views, somewhere around there last time I checked. And then from there, all the other films were, very low. 30, I think 3 of the next 4 films were in like the 30 percentile, with only Chapter 3 breaking close, which was around almost 60%. Otherwise, they were all had very low scores. But when you look at the box office as far as budget and return, I mean, the first film only had a budget of almost $2 million, and it made $100 million. Every film has made over $100 million with very low budget. So the fact that Sony came back and said, hey, Red Door, we spent $16 million, but we made $189 million. Well, let's do another one. And you've all heard me say this before. At some point, I feel franchises need to come to an end, need to come to a conclusion, close the door, and move on. I think Insidious, Red Door would have been fine ending it there. Why? Again, I can understand why they didn't, just from a financial perspective, making money. That's what these companies are in business to do, is make money. So I can understand why they would now want to do a 6th one, which they've already done. So, which saw it becoming the franchise's highest grossing installment, which it was, like I said, $189 million off a $16 million budget. While few details are known about Insidious 6's story, it is confirmed to be separate from the spin-off film Thread, as I just mentioned, and Insidious Tale, which will star Mandy Moore and Kumail Nanjiani in a plot that is connected to the dimensions known as the Further. Let's see here. We're gonna skip past. So we have I think this is where we have the new date, or the original date here. Yeah. So the original date was set for August 29th, 2025. That was, again, supposed to be this year. Now my understanding is I don't know if they've put the 2026 date out there yet. I don't see it listed. Right here, August 21st, 2026. So almost a year. They're pushing almost a full year. I always see when you push out films like this, either they're trying to promote younger actors that are up and coming, or they just have very low expectations from the film, especially with this one being the 6th. But looking at the numbers from the last few films, you wouldn't think that. But you can see here they've decided to replace it with Caught Stealing, starring Austin Butler, which again, then you have Zoe Kravitz, Regina King, Levi Schreiber, and also starring in this. So maybe they feel this one has more star appeal, and the fact that you have Austin Butler, again, up and coming actor, been in some great things lately, to maybe be their next generation of actors and actresses to start carrying the torch, which is why they would push us, part 6 of a franchise out a year. So let's go on to here. The summer of 2026 release date pushes back the mainline continuation of the Insidious franchise. with the fifth installment in 2023. So you're looking at almost 3 years between gaps, which is not uncommon, especially in the horror space. We got those first few sequels fairly quickly, but again, when you start getting further down into sequels, 5, 6, we're Saw is at what, 11 or 12. Friday the 13th has had 10, not counting the reboot. So I think when you start getting down to these higher number of sequels, of course you're going to have, I think bigger gaps between them. Even though the horror series, which first began in 2011, is confirmed to continue with Insidious 6 and in Thread, it is still unknown exactly how the story will proceed after Insidious: The Red Door ending. The 2023 movie ends with Josh Lambert coming back to life, which allows him to reunite and reconcile with his son, Dalton. While the franchise could have ended there, Insidious: The Red Door's post-credit scene indicated there was more to come. The announcement of Insidious 6 will seemingly follow through on this tease, but the payoff will have to wait until later than anticipated, which we just read through all that. And that's pretty much it. So I'm a little disappointed. I was looking forward to this one. I was looking forward to seeing this one this year, and the fact that now it's been pushed out a full year from its current release date. Now we have a year and a half now before this film, considering if we go right from today. So that's a bit disappointing to see. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for today's daily episode. I just want to say a quick thank you to all the new and existing subscribers. I do appreciate all the support, so thank you very much. We do try to put out daily content, whether it is on updates that are constantly coming out. We've recently started doing movie reviews. We're going to continue doing the TV show reviews. Again, Dexter Original Sin Episode 8 comes out. We also are planning on doing some classic TV reviews, classic science fiction horror stuff from the 50s and 60s. We're going to try and do entire series reviews, episode by episode, so be on the lookout for that. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know, are you invested in the Dexterverse? At least that's what I'm calling it. Are you invested in seeing a prequel series with the Trinity Killer? And what do you think about Insidious 6 getting pushed out almost a full year from its release date? Again, let us know down in the comment section, and we'll see you at the next one. Peace.